the movements of people that transfer, conquer civilization and transform it. This was the myth. No? And the superiority of a civilization was largely established to its capacity towards warfare and conquest. And constantly there was this mobility, the Iberians moving to the New World and conquering it, the British moving to South Asia and Indian Ocean and establishing a large conquest, and the Germans were preparing themselves to, after 1871, after the conquest of Berlin, in spite of the suggestions of Bismarck, to avoid the Orient, and because it wasn't even worth the bones of a single Pomeranian grenadier. Okay. In the Emperor William, as he took power in the second, he decided his big drum nach Osten. So the conquest of the East was the instrument for a world conquest that centered on various diplomatic actions. But it's developed in 1872, the German geographer Ferdinand von Richthofen, in his long study of China, a geologist by formation, okay, he invents the notion of the Silk Road. In that particular case, the civilizations will come and not collide, but establish an exchange, since they could not fight each other, being in the extremes of the non-war Romans and the Chinese. So this is the image that imprinted in the minds of people. I mean, consider that in whatever age, the people driving camels or any other pack animal, okay, could hardly read and write. I have very few of them. So it's interesting to consider that it is an entire conception of civilization formed by collision, movement, collision, conquest, okay? It's a product of a given age in European human sciences. Okay? And that is, of course, very much connected to the age, the glory of colonialism. Okay? So this is the image we should try, and Karl expresses it, that we should, the formation of civilization is, on the other hand, strongly bound to the relation with a given territory, its resources, population, resources in a given territory. Okay? And the capacity to extract your food and eventually wealth from the territory is what establishes the roots of civilization. So, in the imaginary of all people, the caravan, the movement, that brings to wealth and conquest, okay? It's something that we have to confront ourselves. The great Silk Road, it's in fact the oversea and overland is the great expression of what we're looking, and in fact, and in our imaginary textiles, of course, cottons, wools, and of course silk represent the object of this trade, and certain textiles were extremely important, and they are a major expression since they were worn by humans, by the king and by the poor. They represent an interest point for everyone, unfortunately largely denied to archaeology in most of the old world. But once we think about moving commodities, moving goods, as I said yesterday on the track of what Karl has been saying, the impact on culture in general, on some of the key expressions of culture, is based not to bulk quantities. It could be determined by small objects, small plants, small quantities on anything, and the human being is not a bad beast of burden, as you can imagine, it speaks by itself. So a certain quantity of goods could be transferred on feet. Camels were not available, for sure, for long distances until the second millennium BC, if not later. But you expect that our part of the world between the Mediterranean, Central Asia, and India was already moving goods overland since the very Holocene, okay, in a significant amount. Significantly in the sense that you could see this porter carrying each of them some 40-50 kg. They could be pots filled with all kinds of food, or medicals, or aromatics. You can see semi-precious stones like lapis, tin ingots. They could have been carried in this way. So we are not denying the reality and significance of trade and exchange over long distances. Also, circuits were well established during the 3rd millennium BC. But of course, it was, as I will show you with following the joint course we did with Karsten in 2002, the concept that a circuit that we design often as a straight line, okay, it's something much more complicated that involves very little even knowledge of each other between the extremes. Okay. Here you have one of the most active circuits already in the 4th millennium BC, then moved around gold. Gold was at both extremes, from Mycop in the north to the Nile Valley and the Eastern Desert. You can enter to these, joining in northern Syria, sort of articulating together, the Euphrates circuits that reached to the Gulf, and along the Gulf already in the 6th millennium BC, at the end of the Holocene, it could travel all the way across the Gulf into Eastern Arabia, and later from Eastern Arabia could move during the 3rd millennium BC, most likely directly to India and to Gujarat as well. The last and not less important circuit is the would-be so-called Khorasan Road, connecting Central Asia and most likely through Middle Asia, the Indus civilization, and combining, articulating in areas of southeastern Iran and the Indus Valley with the third one. So goods moved. We have, in fact, Fred Hibbert in his long dissertation work has shown in a map that I did not add here, the objects that moved from Syria to Oman, or even from Anatolia to southern Egypt. So the concept that Michael wanted us to explore, core, periphery, margin, which are the three areas that could be connected by trade and bring the diffusion techniques, has long been an object of debate, and Benjamin Montaigne yesterday gave us the expression of its meaning by the words of Fernand Braudel, prepared during the Second World War and expressed most in the 50s. Okay, this is the simple, I'm not going to explain this, that probably is very well known to all of you. The concept of root density, which is somehow connected to the hierarchy of settlement within a given territory, and finally the economic structure that go between core, periphery, and margin. Okay, this concept has been explored by historians and over text on different parts of the world, but it's very difficult in our case to establish core. The attempt done by Randall to see economic space by tracking one type of objects, stone artifacts, okay, which are most reliable, visible, preserved over time, and you can find the sources. By exploring over a period of 5 years, the entire region, they could have supplied one major urban center, Arapa, with the stones, has been probably one of the most expressive, successful capacity to describe an economic space in the way we have seen here. Whether this paradigm is correct it's to some extent still doubtful, and it's not really proven that we are dealing with this pulsing of commodities moving on a continental dimension. So everything I'm giving you now is still descriptive, largely. Okay, now we want to talk about the Indus civilization. We well know its extension, the complexity of establishing its borders, I mean, towards the highlands, along the coast, and towards the forest area of northern Indus, or the Doab, or the foothills of the Himalaya. The discovery of Shotogai has puzzled us. We did not expect that the Indus Valley would be over the Hindu Kush already in the 3rd millennium BC, and we still largely are not so able to explain this set of events. I mean, we were already in the late 60s, we tried to visualize the most surprising thing of the Indus civilization beyond its dimensions. I mean, these huge cities, which largely are difficult to visualize in terms of urban history and so on. And by working simply on the basis of size, we can establish the presence of these 4 large metropolises, and we notice that they are at rather regular distance from each other, and they seem to have been ruling a vast territory and its resources. But again, this is purely descriptive. There's no any proof of this. Now, coming to the question of the concept of interaction sphere. In face of dimensions of continuity in the distribution of certain classes of artifacts, we are puzzled. What are we to deal with? I mean, these two centers appear to be quite independent, quite different, but they have lots of things in common. There could be artifacts, there could be techniques. So, but we cannot explain these levels of continuity by using the very rough concepts of conquest, migration. We get nowhere. That there was a dimension of knowledge between Mesopotamia and what the best known, the best studied, the best documented region of Southwest Asia, and the Indus and India. We know even before the Indus civilization was discovered. There was this one of the artifacts brought by collectors of tablets in the market of tablets in the 1870s, 1880s, brought to England, along with the tablets collected by Pitti, the science of southern Mesopotamia, and building up great collections of the British Museum and other centers of learning in France and England, mostly, and later also in Germany, came up this seed with, and basically, the bad luck that we still have to find another one. I mean, Mesopotamia still remains, but we don't even know whether it really comes from Ummah, and we don't even know exactly whether the Ummah, what we call Ummah, is what it should be. Then the Indus civilization appears as some kind of an unexpected miracle, presented in 1921 on the Illustrated London News. And immediately after, we see by the key symbolic artifact, the king priest, that the way it is dressed, the way already by the Second World War, is the Van Ludwig, we know that he represents something which is probably larger than the Indus itself. But of course, we are not completely unable to give explanation. This happened, of course, in the most sophisticated iconographic objects. That sculptures from Mohenjo-Daro are replicated by other sites in Eastern Iran and Southern Central Asia, but still no explanation. In 1950s, the situation is that one seal found in Lhasa, in India, we don't even know where, because it was they did a radio broadcast. When they started working at Lotto, there was a radio broadcast in which they told people, if you find anything in your land, bring it here and we'll give you a couple of rupees. So the seal was brought by farmer the seal, of course, is beginning of the 2nd millennium BC, and whatever we've been looking at Lotto site, the one excavated by Reiff and entered into the World Heritage of UNESCO and so on, we don't know whether the seal comes from there. We still have no strata, no layers, no context that dates to the early 2nd millennium BC, where it should go with the seal at Lotto itself. Anyway, it comes from the region. At the same time, these seals of the Indus, these seals of the Gulf were identified as point of origin in the Arabian shores of the Gulf, centered on Bahrain, but centered in early times and also in Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Qatar. This region of Tilburg produced this particular type of seal, and a very brilliant study by Stefan Larsen, and unfortunately did not come, solved the problem of dating and relating these particular classes of seals as an expression of westward expansion of the Indus civilization in terms of control of trade that we already knew by the analysis of the weights and some of the brilliant ideas by Jeffrey already in the 60s. We added this because it's important that you see the position of Lotto not traditionally on a normally map oriented to the north, but look the complexity of the region, because the Saurashtra, the Periphery Peninsula, is primarily a dry, isolated plateau. And Lotto seems to be in a direct corridor connections to the other centers of the Indus civilization, Surkutara, a small side, and the great center of Dolavira. So if we look from the north to the south, across the lowlands of northern Gujarat, you realize that the Lotto is not so much an expression of the peninsula, but an extension of the Kutch area. Smaller sites, very much involved in the exploitation of marine resources and craft, have been found all along the coast by our Inatolis, all along the coast of western Gujarat. So, excavation of Mohenjo-Daro, Adeshwar, have had a small new window of observation on the Indus civilization and its relation, and its sort of sectorial relations to the sea. It's a field that can be explored, but it will not, of course, give great answers to understand the Indus civilization in itself and its full periphery. But I mean, once you are dealing within the lines of the Indus civilization, the core periphery concept can still help on a regional dimension. This is just to express the expression of contact or alternative routes. 1968, two American ladies, two teachers at the schools of the Aramco in the eastern province of Saudi Arabia, in their personal explorations of the land, mostly people were looking for collecting flints from the early Holocene mill. They came across painted pottery, and rapidly they connected Jeffrey. I remember I saw the first of the spots in Bibby's office in July 1969. So the history of real research should go parallel-wise. And they give a new, unexpected dimension that now is increasing with the new German excavations at Dosseria, and the one of the French. Now, if it's written 7 shirts in the easternmost section of the Gulf, we are, and the new site, Oma going to excavated by Sophie Marie, is providing already hundreds more. So there was substantial transfer of goods, and we expect also to some extent people, that is being tracked by this by the way shirts moving from we know by an analysis guided by John Holtz already 34 years ago, that they were produced in Mesopotamia and traveled all the way to the east. We expect that, of course, a recent survey by Robert Carter in Iran, in the area of Bushir. How do I? Is it? The pointer.
Yeah.
I did not update this map yet. Yeah. So Robert Carter was allowed, for at least one season only, to survey the Bushir area, all this lowland here, and quite a few, where one site had been found by the French in 1912, okay, with white pottery, to find a few more, and starting, we were expected, and he would start exploring the Bandar section of the Iranian coast, because if the Ubay pottery reached here, you may be sure that they reached also Minab, and then entered into the corridor that brings to Jiroft and Iran. So to some extent, we expect sooner or later that goods could move along the two shores of the Gulf, and they could reach, cross Oman, and eventually in the future reach towards Pakistan. But most important, probably already at the end of the 6th millennium BC, they could move from the coast, the Emirates shores in eastern Gulf, all the way into the southeast section of the Iranian plateau. So we still are not there, but most likely, if explorations were allowed or were carried out by the Iranians themselves into this southeastern Iran transfer area between coast and the immediate interior, the role of Tepe in history of archaeology will be further implemented. So that's why it's so important that Benjamin and Carl were able to revitalize the record of Yahya. Same time, the Mesopotamia had been present in the area we knew already since the 60s, of the work of the studies on the ceramics brought to the British Museum by various explorers that included mostly ceramics of the Jansen type, had been analyzed by Elizabeth Julie Kaspers, okay, for a dissertation which was closed in 1969, proving the presence of in Oman, from Oman, of this Jansen ceramics from graves. Oman in 1969 was still closed, would be open to archaeology from 1972-73 with the nomination of Andrew Wilson at the direction of the New Archaeological Service. Oman then enters into the picture, but doesn't change much, only tells us that the continuity of Mesopotamian presence in Oman. This, we all know about this. Now, the discovery of Tepe, the tablets, in the 4C context, dates to 1970, and that also brings a completely new dimension, and a completely new type of evaluation, where size seems to have, in this particular case, for the history of archaeology, little importance, because as Carl repeated several times yesterday with Ben, is 2.5 hectare site with all its extension, and contains basically an office for the administration of even the smallest agricultural production in the area. So if we should project to the entire southern Iran picture the situation of Tepe, imagining that you had such an office in each single area of this mosaic, or even a few of them, you would be in face of a political and economical organization that can control up to the last sheep, up to the last bushel of wheat across these diversified, rugged territories with many little countries. I mean, I still don't know whether it's been lucky or not lucky that Karl took that road that day, and instead of driving another 4 or 5 hours and entering as first explorer the Giraffe Valley, that would be overwhelmed with sights, he stopped there, saw the site, and decided to go there. In history of archaeology, that's an incredible luck, because we will have completely missed the picture. We have been talking again about great centers, reproduction, early state, we've been projecting the Mesopotamian idea that if Karl had driven another 6 hours and faced Konarsen-Dal or any one of the big mountains, then you'd be the heat after you passed the Tandemorman gorgeous. Instead,
Das ist ganz wichtig, weil dieser Vortrag ist einmalig.
the third generation includes people like Fred Hebert, okay? And the fourth generation will have people like Michael Fascetti, and now Benjamin practically kidnapped from the French. he's there to continue the work. So, but even more important are the students, is the conquest of Australia. Because are the students of Dan Paulson, and who have now revenged their mentor and gone back to conquer very relevant positions like Cameron Petrie at Cambridge, Lloyd Weeks at Nottingham, and Peter McKee. I think he's still in Bramwell. So this is the value of a scholar. How do you measure it? By the books he writes, to some extent. But the most important is what he needs to do after. And Karl has already done his job. His major investment is as a teacher. As our it's perfect. Now, this has to be complained because this area, which we keep on saying is poorly explored, but we leave behind us a large number of people. Of course, the death of some of us, like Serge in particular, leaves us with unperfectioned strategies in his student, but the friendship and the lines of Roland and Jarige might help in granting continuity of the French academic destiny. Sarrazin is an incredible set of stimulating new discoveries. This picture speaks by itself. You have this circle of stones, it's just the rim of a major kurgan that was later obliterated and covered by third millennium BC settlements and workshops. The mound is a burial mound that you can see down here in the plan produced by Roland. At the center of the mound there is the first grave. First grave is a senior lady with 2 attendants, and she had a robe of lapis steeped on some cloth, and beads are there, but most important, she has 2 bracelets produced from carving a Turbinella pure. And the same Roland, luckily so, in his other half of his life, investing in Balochistan itself, same Roland resuming his excavations at Stein, is able to find the conviction. Now, just briefly, we're talking about, well, it's already 2 weeks if you want to walk with those backpack from Shortgari to Sarrazin. And Sarrazin is not a periphery. Sarrazin is evidently the center of something else. This something else extends, to be sure, to the Sirdarya and to the borders of Chach between Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan. We are already touching Kazakhstan steppe. So we were looking. So evidently, the market, if you want to imagine it in a market dynamic, so you want to imagine it into some other kind of structure. Sarazm is the center of a regional system. And the system will extend to the Silk. So we're talking about remarkable distances over that Middle Asian circuit I had briefly outlined to you. But if you want to bring those bracelets from point of origin and end of the 4th millennium BC to give it to the lady buried in Sarazm, you're talking about 70, 80 days of backpack walking. Okay? So 1,700 kilometers. So if you can use Balakote, if you use Shaitu, it makes no particular difference. So are we talking about long business contact? Now this is, we come into Geoft, editor discovery, you know what's found, back to our circuits, to bring you to the reflection. And now we come. Now, in 2002, together with Carl, we put together a teaching course for Harvard, and he produced this very interesting suggestion. Now, we are talking about segmented trade, which is already largely described in his seminal paper, The Convention, 1972, but not so clearly made. So that's what Carl presented in the course. He said, look, we're talking about connectivity, is the new concept that is being used largely now, mostly in old world archaeology, and condivision. And this can take place with very little actual knowledge of the different partners, by considering regional circuits that could be very small in the Neolithic, in the Holocene, and they tend to enlarge themselves. Sometimes they integrate with each other at some point. So this winding pathway can be, so the great progress, say the Silk Road, but the Silk Road, what it's doing is simply creating a more direct pathway intersecting the regional circuits. So never a package made at Xi'an reached Rome. Be sure. That package of silk was packed and repacked and sold and resold and moved and removed for over a period of 1 to 3 years before he reached the wealthy ladies of Rome or Antiochia. So, in early stage of the pre-existing local cities of exchange became connected by intentional passages and by exploiting existing intersections, certain local cities. So this will give us a theoretical frame to understand how a phenomenon like Silk Road will come together. Okay, you might be lucky, like Professor Hoffman and his predecessor, Karl Yettman, in hitting exactly the passage, okay, between one regional system and the next one, okay, across a corridor of mountains, and the people, the bored caravan people are there to leave you messages on the rock. And this has been a fantastic opportunity to understand in later times the connections between one part and the other. And to our surprise, you have symbolics from coming from Mongolia all the way to the passages into the subcontinent. Okay. So we have perceptions, but this is somehow the theory that allows you to see the history of this transition and exchanges. 1981, 82, or New Year, the discovery of the Erasagenes brings back the connections in discussion between the two scenes, the scenes from Tilmum and the one from there. It's easternmost section of Arabia. Russell had the Erasagenes at the critical site, and we started exploring it with Search and Zoo in 1985, just 2 weeks after his marriage. So we came there, and exploration started and has been going on and on, involving a high degree of collaboration and exchange between the French and Italians, but involving largely the British, the Indians, the Americans at various stations. Site is very impressive, very well preserved. That's where the pottery was found. It is inscribed. I mean, if someone had discovered this pottery in the 1890s or before the Indus Valley was discovered, they would have thought it was an Arabian writing. Okay, but instead it's just a fragment of one's onion-shaped jars that eventually were used as anchor for transport. More pottery was found and will be studied soon, along with pottery, other imports. But the basics of the culture remained Arabian. You could follow the formative stages from early Tosi. Routes were reconstructed according to the monsoon pattern of today. Travel was possible in given season eastward and then back westward. Now, in 1970, had already been found this collection of silver and golden pots. Then later was evidently not a collection from a single grave site. It was a collection probably in the store, from the store of an antiquarian or an illicit excavator in northern Afghanistan. Back to it comes out. So begins in 1970. Serenity goes to northern Afghanistan in 69. The Hoard of Furor is found in 66, but it's given to me for publication in 1969. And progressively it comes to action. Exploration is only possible when the Soviets open the door, and we are giving permission to explore the Mohenjo-Daro Delta to create the new archaeological map. The area involves, of course, a alluvial fan of the Mohenjo that has been retrieving and extinguished. You can see the names of the famous sites of Tepe and others. Then Serenity, when Serenity begins the long-term with large exposures at Gunnar, this complexity, vastness of this civilization, completely unexpected classes of artifacts involving imports of shell as much as of ivory and all kinds of commodities, and even seals trickling from distant Mesopotamia and largely foreign and used or from eastern Iran. I mean, the beauty, the elegance, the importance of the local elites are coming out. The evidence of the use of camels at the end of the millennium in all possible. Asko was talking about, of course, being several times as much as Karl on Mohenjo. Spoke about the sky garment. It's probably something like the one described in sealed, but they use the great innovation in transport. Are camels. Camels allow bulk trade overnight. This is the great discovery of tomb 1300, where you have camel still attached to a four-wheel wagon. I'll leave this to Dennis. But the continuity, the art continuity that I showed because of the discovery from Alexandra Adeleano and Michael Jansen, we're looking into those. And here are the local elites. And whatever they are doing, the elites are having a party. And the rest is work. Don't forget, that's the point. They can relax while someone else is doing work. Okay. But here you have the evidence that the Indians were reaching there. But on the contrary, you also have the evidence of Oman. This is an Omani pot used as some kind of a temporary seat, probably, in Lotto that was re-scratched and reused for the area of Dennis. And you can see the connections between Oman and the area there. So we are back to understand the dimensions of all this, but if we go to looking the usual text of Sargon and from where are the boats coming, mooring at Agad, Here we get the picture, and here we get the main resource that we know was generated by the Omani Mountains, as much as Iran. In terms of quantity, the copper that was extracted in Iran was far larger than the one coming from Oman. But the interesting thing is that being seaborne trade, we can have some evidence of direct connection. The work of Jean Day team across Iran, Afghanistan, and Oman in the second half of the 70s, Roland was part of that to allow to identify critical collections of copper objects like the ones in Basel, Susa, with the Indus. And the same Indus will be found in January 1981 by the first season directed by Wesker in Massa. Okay, full package, a ready package. But I mean, remembering things moved, but that's not the point, okay? You can have the typical cheap Omani vessel, I mean, nothing to do with the evidence of the products of the 33rd millennium, but the so-called Schinkelstrasse. But evidently what was traded was not the pot, but what was inside the pot that we still have to understand. Warfare. Don't keep your mind that that's the dimension that we have to understand, because as Karl said yesterday, trade did not cover the entire spectrum of exchange. Booty, raiding, booting, and of course warfare was symbolically and really properly a major aspect. And so when we come in visualizing these territories, I don't even remember where is this from, but exactly that's what you have. Isolated patches of farmlands and huge areas open only at the best to mining and animal breeding. How big are these areas? I listed there that you hear the Sulkandria area, compare it with the even smaller Mohenjo-Daro, the Bukhara, the Middle Zarafshan, Samarkand, the Sirdaria, but compared to Sindh. When you're looking at the civilization, we are reasoning in terms of a lot of food, that by putting a lot of labor, you feed a lot of people. And if you don't feed the people, they vote with their feet. And so you'll be unable. So the ocean is very much part of this. The idea of Michael Jansen to establish in Oman a center for the exploitation of our knowledge, partly collected digitally, partly collected with books and materials, partly inviting people in constant seminar courses, might give us a future. Okay. There we go. Back to this picture that you've seen already several times, including we are in the middle of a vast interaction area, if you use it, call it Middle Asia, or call it as you like. The central part of this interesting enough includes the critical sites of Area of Sharsota, Shahdan. So this is a body-centric perspective. It's not center-periphery, of course, but you're dealing in a certain degree of fluidodynamics could be involved. And consider that the ocean, at least in the second half of the millennium, was exploited and opened by navigation. Chronology is our disaster, because we still don't come to terms between whatever chronology we're trying to build up, for example, from Sarasota, and the one that the French teams have been establishing. And it's not a factor of conflict. One of the missions being given to people like Aurore, Benjamin, Dennis, is to solve this gap for 200 years. If we are not able to synchronize all the phenomenology in this area with a safe chronological frame, we will get nowhere. No theory can be built, nothing can be developed. So this is the priority target. Fix the chronology, and we will invest everything possible. I leave you with something that archaeology is also made of luck. There are discoveries that we don't expect And then you are motionless, and a lot of energy have to go into understanding. We still talk about third millennium, but the great chain of events that changed the history were in the second. The second millennium is the one we know least. And at the end of the second millennium, with the first millennium, that's where civilization comes into shape, in the forms that we know. In India, Central Asia, Arabia, as much as by the time the Persian Empire sets in, the great configurations have already shaped from the Caucasus to the Yemen. So what have we found here? Accidental discovery of those people who like to drive, I forgot the name. They are heavy jeeps over dunes and coming down vertically. They seem to be a very exciting thing. So they search for large dunes and then drive their cars. And one of these group of people, I must say, of extraordinary ethical qualities, they came across a site in the Roman Valley. You have it pointed there. This is the landscape. and that's what you look with G. And how do you find what happens if you find on the surface of that? A few hundreds of this lying there. So they were motionless, they didn't touch anything, they made a movie with their video, they brought it to the Allied Center where Mark Beach is there. Mark Beach sent them to me to Muscat. I put together in 48 hours a team of the ministry, and with my art friends, I dashed there. And on the surface, they're lying 200s of this. This is the result of one morning, 48 degrees. It wasn't easy, okay? What is this? What have I found? What period is this? In general, but the funny thing is that what I'm collecting there are partly objects which are disused and a lot of unfinished to be remelted. What have we found? And then, of course, slags, but not smelting slags. These are slags of melting of the coastal reefs. Gold as well. What is this? Hundreds of these. What are they? Identical. They're still used today. They're not made of metal. They're made of silica pottery. Gold work. What is it doing in the middle of the Rub al-Khali and major production centers that generates copper tools identical to Luristan or Duran? Okay. There are about 15 hectares of kilns. This is the type of kiln I'm talking about. It's not finished. The ancestry, the book Serge and I put together, in the shadow of the ancestors, to explain the history of the man. Now, finally, the ancestors talk. This would be the pleasure of Professor Hoffman. Rustaki is one of the big centers of northern Oman. There are various wadis converging. They want to build a road, and they were going to destroy the rock. The minister came in and stopped the work, and I called the people from the Val Camonica in northern Italy. And the technique, they said, you have huge amounts of water to wash the face. You come on top of that, and you copy it. Copy it's not always easy. You copy simply by using your pen, the same way they use the rock to pack the stone. And at the end, the results are unbelievable, overlapping. The water, and we also had to squeeze some 20 kg of lemons to produce the vinegar that we don't have in Oman, of course, and we could eliminate the even smallest pieces of inscriptions. Hundreds of South Arabic inscriptions never found in northern Oman. But the palimpsest of stratifying the Bronze Age, Iron Age images that may include this godly figure of the Bronze Age and the Iron Age in various stages coming, then the Arabian inscriptions, these large symbolic animals. Those white spots are the shotguns. Each time they traveled, in the past 200, 300 years, they shot against the prey animals. Mating ostriches, the male will go to mate. And this is fine. Now, what is the future? The future, of course, of archaeology is the moment we'll be able to see the untangible. Now, the intangible we still found, still in the open ocean. Our people are looking to land ho. Okay, I will probably not be on board anymore by the time they reach. But just to give you a hint of how deep we can go if our documentation is proper. It's a Bronze Age frieze of women at a party with a servant or a child there. The camel and the cavaliers are an age overlaps. Party women, this is the other extreme of our world. I mean, this, I'm not telling you anything, but these are also women at the party. There's the beautiful silver pyxis at the Louvre, with all this, which I've been analyzing and describing, is a big sacrifice of a goat taking place with all the rituals, and the women assisting, trying to describe what's there. Some details. And again, the party. So, whether the party is for religious reasons or simply a moment to have fun, while the farmers are working, that's another point. But civilization can find various pathways to speak with us. That is what we tell you. And now I want to raise some memories. Okay. There's some easy to recognize. Someone like Dixit or Gupta and Vishnu are more difficult. But even more difficult is this one. That's the first meeting with Karl, Bob Adams on one side, Greg Johnson behind, Greg Rosell at the head, Phil Cole, and the different Russians. It's also around even an early time exploring systems. This is a Torrentable, Serge Tessieux at Torrentable, or one of our first meeting in East Berlin. That's my memory. But the picture is there because there is the two ridge or Bichon on the left. The two of us opening the explorations in Eraslat or farming cabinet. Yeah. Greg Rosell with Shinde and Carla Sinopoli in 2007 at the Sant'Ale conference, and the two of us, two aged Harry Potter. There we are. Thank you.
Thank you, Maurizio. I think many questions or discussion or some remarks have to be done. Who will be the first speaker?
Thank you, Maurizio, for this both theoretically and substantively informed presentation. I just want to make one comment. You talk of what I think is quite correctly to be termed the Fotohandlung. And let me say what three of those really were, because they really start this aspect of the diffusion of a cultural entity, a very complex cultural entity over very, very broad areas. And there are three of them, and they date between 3,500 and 3,000 BC. First is the Kura-Araxes. It reaches, presently, one of my graduate students, Kani Malizadeh, is excavating in Iman the site of Uramas, which is a 40-hectare Kura-Araxes site. There are Kura-Araxes sites in Anatolia, there are Kura-Araxes sites as far down as Palestine. It must be a movement of actual populations, of peoples as well. It's between 3,500, it goes on into the third millennium, etc. But it's a major geographically expansive movement of people. The second is the Uruk, again, within that time frame, and the third is the Bolivia. those three aspects, I think, are appropriately called Volkswanderung. They're cultural complexes over very broad territorial areas. True, there's an earlier Ube one, but these are three distinctive geographical areas of distinctive archaeological culture, reaching a very broad and accepted condition. And it is overland trade. It is not maritime trade. Maritime trade comes in later within the aspect of the latter part of the third millennium, Mesopotamia, the Indus Valley, building, etc., etc. Those elements, the first one sets, I would argue, the precondition for the second one. And the second one is actually also embedded in empire. The Akkadian Empire, the Urtri Empire, and there are those who would venture to say the Indus Empire. But they are highly elaborate, centralized, urban, literate configurations that are themselves of very large dimension, and that's the second one. That's the latter part of the third millennium. But it really is those three elements that set the precondition for the geographical expansiveness of the knowledge of shared technology, shared culture over very broad geographical expanses. Thank you, Maurizio.
I'm also very impressed on this presentation of this interaction, wide scale or regional. I only want to add to this this micro context with the South. There's a long discussion about maritime trade, the Rune Bosphorus. And I think
basically Troy.
Yeah, and I think this route before the second millennium is very difficult.
Oh yeah,
I will say also the micro contacts in the south are not going.
But this idea of Silko is descriptive. Oh no, yeah, of course. I mean, you've been working a lot with the people of Aachen, also Phil has been involved in understanding this period where the people from north are evidently coming on top of the end of these temples and administration centers. And Aachen provides a beautiful demonstration of people moving, as Karl was saying. No, the description of the circuit, it's as I say, it's descriptive. It's not the fact that these things was in operation. But we see that the network of channels, it's immense, and of course, moving people. But the movement of people, which rightly so, Karl puts as a critical issue, and there are different instances, poor access, and then the movement from the Caucasus into Euphrates or into the Kamish area, it's absolutely evident, and across Iran also. We have seen the things, expansion, more selective expansion like the Proto-Elamite in Iran, or involving demographic movement, people movement like Uruk expansion. I mean, it's all undisputed, okay, in various ways, and more difficult to understand. That's why I put that upside down slide of Gujarat, the expansion of the Indus into what's today India, from the southeast and the northeast perspective towards Ganges or towards the Deccan is still to be proven, because we might be dealing more with forms of interaction between local cultures and this hegemonic culture interested in aspects of expansion and maybe not always in territorial expansion. So are people moving, or goods are moving?
Yeah.
Maybe evidently in many instances also people are moving. If you look at the history of British colonialism in India, they are able to pack their suitcase in 3 months and get out. There were no poor Englishmen sent to live in India, but the French sent 500,000 to produce wine in Algeria. Building disaster. Then they had to take this million people back to France. That is colonialism in the Roman perception, colonia abrupta. Okay, I mean, the Russians sent plenty of poor people, and even what the French never did, allowed the local people to marry into Russian women, annihilating the local culture, because I mean, the mother is a transfer, it's a transfer of culture. So they absolutely, so even in our recent colonial history, we see that movement of people involves incredible changes and impact. And of course, this can be archaeologically seen. And the case of the Uruguay expansion is a good case of something that can be seen. It's more difficult in a landscape without these major river corridors that are means of integration and continuity, of course. So in the Indus, we had this water transport. And on the Euphrates as well, water on water and overland along the water. In any case, this of course facilitates, you know. But once you come into this mosaic of emptiness and farmland, okay, this movement has to be understood. And of course, as Gal said, trade is the third expression that could help us. But I was understanding Völkerwanderung, movement of people, is something which has to be demonstrated. Okay? And that's now the border access is a discovery. We still don't have any evidence, in spite of the discovery of shortline. We are still, unfortunately, are involved in only 2-3 seasons there. So as long as we invest in more research, but that's the disaster. We do not have any country where to invest with the 10, 12 projects. Oman is there, but Oman is really briefly.
But still it's puzzling. If you look at this interaction gigantic area with Mesopotamia on the one side as a river system and the Indus civilization now in the eastern side. How little this Indus Valley civilization is taking part in this process you have been describing. There seems to be a kind of barrier, a Chinese wall, I don't know. We have, as far as I understand, no interaction from west to further east, and almost, besides Portugal, which is quite isolated, no interaction from west to east until the boat is coming. Not in the land rule process. What is it wrong? Yeah.
Well, I think you're right. There is an asymmetry. There's an asymmetry in the archaeological evidence. There is a very considerable amount of Indus material in Mesopotamia. There's very little Mesopotamian, if any, in the Indus. If you turn to the Iranian plateau and you mark off the various different sites, from Susa to Bangkok, you would have a very long list of archaeological sites which have not one single object from the Indus. And you will find a very, very small handful. Some of them are metal type, like for instance the metal type from his side, which is said to be Indus. Some of them may be a ceiling type, which is the one that is found in the island section, which may or may not be. The evidence is ambiguous on the overland aspect through. There is no shorter gap on the Iranian plateau. But maritime trade changes the situation. There's a very considerable amount of Indus stuff in the Gulf, of course, a very considerable amount in Mesopotamia. But again, if you want one entity which has the most material on the Iranian plateau, some material in the Arabian Peninsula, and quite a bit in the Indus Valley, is BMAC. That's the one that has artifactually on a number of sites. Now, it may not be very, very many. I mean, Hinam, Shafta, Sarasota, Yadam, Lasses. But then again, Maliana, not an object. In the north of Mongolian, etc., not a single object. It's mostly in the central, southern portion that you have the BMAC. But that's where I would argue, without any evidence supporting it whatsoever, it's really the opening of a Khorasan road. And it's the result of military confrontation between Mesopotamia and what's happening in the Iranian plateau. Shimashki and the Iranians that left and bring the king of the Uruk in chains back to Moscow.
somebody else, one more comment?
No, you can first.
Hmm? No, it's okay, it's a chair. No, no,
Oh,
it's just a
that's
mention.
from the agenda. Did I say?
Okay, so one more question?
Could I just say then, that it seems to me that we didn't talk about the distribution of resources. And the Iranian plateau has this fantastic distribution of resources. And the Indus had its own resources. They didn't really have to go to the Iranian plateau. So I think we should think about resources. And that, of course, does figure into the whole notion of how the politics work, because people want to go where those resources are. But I think that has to be considered a factor.
Remembering that the objects are usually finished products that give us the evidence of contact,
Yeah.
not the exploitation of resources, because we really have zero for minds in terms of where those resources are coming from.
And the Iranian plateau.
We don't have very many mines. We have Sialta as a production
I'm
site.
not talking about now.
Well,
I'm talking
so
about
let's
natural resources.